Hello. Try and imagine, if you will, a world where there are no people, only monsters. All kinds of different monsters. Tall monsters, short monsters, fat and skinny monsters, huge, hairy, scary monsters, higgledy-piggledy, squashy bun monsters, flippity-floppity, bippity-boppity, gorgonzola cheese monsters. Monsters who would figure only in your wildest dreams and would frighten even a weary traveller such as me to merely think of them. But I'd be wrong, for the one thing all these monsters have in common is they're all very, 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 very happy! That is, all except for one. Very small, very insignificant, very blue monster called George. You see, George's problem was no one seemed to like him very much. He tried to make friends with the other monsters by fetching their water or tidying their gardens. Just never seemed to work out. George, it had to be said, was a very sad monster. It was one of those days when the sun was shining brightly over Monster Town. Everyone was about their daily business, and George was digging over Mr. Sloppychop's favourite flower bed when a town crier announced there was to be a meeting held in the town hall immediately. And to his surprise, George had been named as guest of honour. Well, he was surprised. He'd never been invited to anything, let alone asked to be guest of honour, and completely forgetting about being there straight away, he decided to go home, put on his best going out wellies, and brush his teeth. Meanwhile, the meeting in the town hall had already begun. "Greetings," said the king in a deep wobbly voice he used for his most important announcements. "I have a most important announcement to make. Dear people of Monster Town, this morning I received a grave message of doom and gloom. It is a message of great sadness to us all. It is a message from the almighty dragon, Dribbleflop." The crowd gasped and cowed at the very mention of his name, and with good cause too, for Dribbleflop the Almighty, as he was known to all who feared him, which was most people, was the most evil creature in the whole of Monster World. He was the kind of dragon who, when feeling peckish, would rather eat his own grandmother as a midday snack than be nice to anyone. That is, if he hadn't already eaten her for breakfast. The worst was yet to come, though, as the king began to read the terrible message to his quivering people. "Dear feeble monsters, you're probably wondering why I'm bothering to waste my time writing to such a puny race as yourselves. Well, as you know, next week is my 600th birthday, and I, in my infinite wisdom, have decided that you should be the first to send me a present. No, don't thank me. It's the most I could do. Realizing, though, being the kind and, well, frankly wonderful dragon that I am, you may be finding a little difficulty in deciding what to get me. I thought I'd give you a bit of a helping hand. I'm having a party, only a small one, you know, nothing grand, just a few friends round for dinner, and I was wondering if one of you monsters would care to join us as the main course. Try not to think too long thinking about it, and make sure you send someone fat. Hugs and kisses, Dribbleflop. Oh, P.S. If you don't send a monster by next week, I'll come and burn down your village." "So there you have it," said the king gravely. "One of you monsters must go and be part of the dragon's birthday meal. I, of course, would go myself, were it not for my duties in the town, and, well, I'm not quite as young as I once was. So, whom amongst you brave citizens will volunteer to go and be eaten by the almighty dragon Dribbleflop?" The king's eyes searched the room for a willing subject, but as you would have guessed, no one was silly enough to raise their hands. "As I thought," muttered the king. "So I've decided to send George instead. All those who agree, raise their hands." George finally arrived at the meeting to find all of the monsters with their hands in the air. Strange, he thought to himself, but then monsters were always doing strange things when he was around. He decided to ask, "Hey up, Kingy, what's happening?" "Ah, George," the king said in a joyful tone, which rather surprised the audience, who at that point were feeling very guilty about what had been decided. "We were just deciding who should be the new hero of Monster Town." "New hero?" questioned George. "I didn't even know we had an old one." "Quite right, George," replied the king, in a way which led the village monsters to believe the king had something up his sleeve that was going to make them feel a lot less guilty about sending George to be eaten. That made them feel a lot better. "Which is why I think it's about time we had one, don't you?" continued the king. "I suppose so," said George, not quite sure. "Good, then you accept the position, I take it." George was confused.
What position? The position of hero, of course. Tomorrow you must go and fight a dragon that is threatening to burn down our village.
The audience marvelled at the sheer brilliance of their clever king. What a good idea! Getting George to think that he was going to fight a dragon instead of being eaten by one. George had been surprised for the second time that day. Imagine, out of all the brave monsters in the village, the king had chosen him to be a hero. To join the ranks of such legendary figures as Snugbottom of Doodlebug, saviour of the Ding-Dongle Fatties, and Nog-Nog the Wicked, who had single-footed stamped out the rampant Splatterbug invasion. George felt proud and honoured, but he also felt scared. He'd never seen a dragon, let alone fought one, and although the king had assured him that they were usually very small and easy-peasy lemon squeezy to sneak up on, George had his doubts.